Hello, listeners and viewers, to the next episode of Welcome to Perth Catch-Ups. Today I have with me Magenta Marshall. Now, she's probably taken over the biggest seat, certainly in WA. You've taken over Mark McGowan's seat in the city of Rockingham. How are you going?
Good, thank you. And thank you for having me on today and for this opportunity to have a chat to your viewers and listeners.
Firstly, we'll go back into your backstory a little bit, but what was that like? All of a sudden, the opportunity popped up, and Mark McGowan stepped down, and in you go. You did have to get voted in. It wasn't just hand the baton over and easy peasy. So you did have to do some. I saw you doing a lot of mail drops and chatting to residents, because I do know that you're a local, so I dare say that would have helped. But talk to me how that experience was.
It was a crazy 6 weeks. I think I was pre-selected middle of June, and the election was on the 29th of July. And pretty much from the get-go went out door knocking just about every single day until those final 2 weeks of pre-poll. So it was high intensity, but that kept me motivated and kept me feeling like a sense of achievement every day. I've been around politics for a long time and been involved in many campaigns, and had I thought what it would be like given it was a by-election and the premier seat, maybe I wouldn't have done it in hindsight because it was intense. But I'm really glad that I did. And, obviously it's a great responsibility, but I think because it was the premier resigning in such a traditionally safe seat, there was a lot of media attention on it, which was I hadn't quite prepared for, but it was a good experience.
So a few media interviews. So you're trained up in these sort of interviews now.
Well, I haven't done a podcast yet, so this is the first, but yes, done a bit of media.
Great to have you on.
Thank you.
Only our second politician, actually, other than Basil Zemplis on, so it's great to have you on. And when you door knocked, what were a lot of residents sort of saying when you were chatting to them?
Cost of living was definitely the biggest issue that came up, and I'm sure most listeners can relate that times are really tough. So that was probably the biggest issue that came up, and I guess concerns around access to housing and the things that flow on from that. But we had a good story to tell in Rockingham, particularly with cost of living initiatives from the government, and I, just was able to share my personal story with people, and a lot of people really connected with the fact that I was local and grew up in Rockingham. It did surprise me how many people really valued that. Some people would say, "So you're Labor, where did you grow up?" And I said, "Oh, in Coolangatta." And they said, "All right, you got my vote." Okay,
You're in.
That was easy.
Well, let's rewind straight back. So you grew up there. So what was your childhood like? What were your parents like?
I grew up in Coolangatta with just my mum. I was born into a single parent family with just mum and I. She worked as a public servant at Centrelink in Rockingham, and that's where she met Barry, the man I now call Dad, and he's been in my life since I was 3 and legally adopted me last year.
Oh, last year?
Yeah,
awesome.
So just in time for my wedding, so that he could be on my marriage certificate, so that was important to us.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so I'm the oldest of 3 girls. I've got 2 younger sisters, and neither of my parents finished high school, so for them having a quality education was really important. They wanted us to have more opportunities in life than they did. So, they afforded us a good quality education on a single income, and really instilled in us those values, those Labor values of fairness and equality. And I think we had a pretty good start in life.
And working hard.
Working hard. Yeah.
Awesome. And so growing up, were you always interested in politics, or were you sort of doing sport and sort of fell into politics? What were your sort of interests as a kid?
Growing up, I was quite sporty. I've done quite a few different sports in my time. One of my earliest memories is, the Coolangatta Oval down the road from me, doing little athletics there and failing every week at the power walk.
Getting the red cards?
Yeah, getting those red cards. And then I tried hockey, netball, and then found that I had a good passion for football, as in soccer, and played at the Rockingham City Football Club.
My wife would love that you just said football and not soccer.
So
she's English, and I always get it whenever I go over and see her family. So well done. They'll be happy.
Good tick, my husband's English too, so that's probably where it kind of rubs off on me. And so I still play football when I can, when I'm not injured. And that was kind of, I guess, common theme throughout my life has been playing sport and belonging to a team. And, I love that competitive nature. I have that competitive nature. It was while at university that I became more politically minded. I went to Murdoch to study Asian Studies, specialist in Indonesian language.
Very cool.
Yeah, because my school, that was our secondary language, was Indonesian, and I had a wonderful teacher, Ibu Vicky, who I just really loved that class, and she was so great. So I just thought, I'll continue on with this because I'm kind of good at it and I enjoy it, and I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grow up. Sometimes I still don't, to be honest.
Hey, we're all still trying to work it out.
And yeah, it was while at university that I thought, what else could I do with Asian studies, and started looking into politics, and I guess reflected on, my values. And at the time we had Colin Barnett as Premier and Tony Abbott as Prime Minister, and I didn't really feel like I was reflected in them, and they aligned with me. So I ended up joining the Labor Party in 2014, and from there have really snowballed and gotten more and more active.
And so was that, you joined the Labor Party, was that like part of the uni Labor Party, or were you the full state Labor Party or the National Labor Party?
Yeah, it was the full state Labor Party, so that every state has a different branch. And if you join the uni Labor Party, you are technically joining the state branch.
Okay.
But I didn't get involved through uni. I just was a bit of a weirdo and went online and just joined the Labor Party.
Love
put
it.
$25 in. And I ended up being in the central branch. And so from there, I kind of had an opportunity to look around, and I joined the Kwinana branch.
So for those that don't know, so how many branches are there? Is that like to do with the different seats that are in WA when people actually go to vote?
So, the seat of Rockingham could have a branch for Waikiki and for Coolabah
Right,
and for Hillman. So just you need a minimum of 20 members per area. And so when I joined Central, that one technically doesn't meet. It's just I think it's kind of a legacy branch for people who joined way back when, and if you don't want to be super active, you can just be in that branch. But yeah, there are uni branches, there are direct branches around particular issues. So there's an environment branch, or there's a multicultural branch, or a Rainbow Labour branch. So there's a lot of different options, and I ended up in Central, and then I moved to the Kwinana branch because I started doing volunteering for Roger Cook, who was member for Kwinana and a shadow minister at the time, but in opposition because it was 2014.
And how did you just decide you wanted to start helping out?
Yeah, so as I said, I went online and joined, and then I started to get the email bulletins about what was going on. And living in Rockingham was pretty lucky with the local talent. We had Mark McGowan, Roger Cook, Paul Papalia, all pretty senior figures in the party. So I remember going to my first meeting, and all three of them were there, and I thought, wow, this is pretty special.
All the big wigs, yeah.
And from there, Roger said it would be great if you could do a bit of work experience, because I was still at uni, in my office one day a week, and then started volunteering ahead of the 2016 federal and 2017 state elections. And from there, got more active in Young Labor, joined policy committees and took on various roles before putting my hand up for this seat.
And then obviously Labor getting into the state, so I presume that then changed the dynamic a fair bit for the things that you were seeing and things you're working on and things you're learning.
Yeah. So ahead of the 2017 state election, I was a field organiser. So that's like volunteer coordinator for the state seat of Balcatta. So not too far from where we are.
Yeah.
And
we're in Scarborough, by the way, for those listening.
Sorry. And we won that seat, and that was the seat we needed to win government. So then I got to work as an electorate officer for a member of parliament for a bit, which kind of, I guess, really gave me that passion of feeling like, all right, now we're helping people, people coming through the door. And, although you're a backbencher, you can still have a bit of influence in policy and raising the issues that are coming up through your door knocking and all that with government. And
then, was that a full-time role for you?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, and so that was 2017?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So you've been in politics since 2017 full-time?
Yep.
Yeah, I love it. And then, so you're obviously enjoying it because you didn't throw the towel in, and here we are, the member for Rockingham. So, what was that next sort of 3 years, 4 years like?
Yeah, so while working as an electorate officer, I, for 4 years, got more involved in the party just in terms of I was a policy committee convener. So that's, helping bring like-minded people together to talk about different policy interests and present that to your state conference. I started working in the branch and doing more door knocking and, campaigning around the issues that I cared about. And then in 2021, after the state election, I went and worked for WA Labor as a campaign organiser and women's organiser. So
awesome.
Looking to bring more women into the party, but also help engage and I guess provide opportunities for the women that are in the party.
Awesome. And so if you were to give advice to someone listening today that is wanting to get into politics, was the path you took, you think the best path today as well?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend the way I did it. I'm sure there are multiple different ways, but I'd say joining your political party is the best step, is the best first step. If you're a Labor interested in Labor Party, would be very happy to meet or to be if anyone wanted to reach out and discuss it. But
and Liberal people, if they're interested in that, just don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's not no, I would recommend still joining your branch, your party, or doing the ABC Vote Compass if you're unsure, and finding out what party best represents you and your values, what policy initiatives align with you, and then get involved, start going to those branch meetings, putting input to policy discussions, campaigning, and getting active that way. I think that's really, what's led me to this point, is having those skills starting from the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ground up.
And so obviously then, the next election comes along, and absolute landslide. And did you notice the dynamics change? Obviously a lot more power, so it meant Labor could actually get a lot more things through that they wanted to. Did you notice much of a change, from the first, is it first called the term? First term to the second term?
I didn't so much, mainly because when, and I think the government has tried not to be arrogant with that extra power that they have. They still take time and let opposition have say on policy and debate it. And of course, if the Labor government wants to do something, it can get it done, but I think they haven't been arrogant with it. But since that state election in 21, I, a few months later, started to work at the WA Labor Party office, and so my focus was then on the federal election. So it was a bit different for me. I didn't stay as an elected officer.
Yeah, okay. And I mean, every election you're a part of, you seem to win. So
oh no,
no. What was?
I was involved in the 2019 federal election, and that was a pretty sad loss. Yeah.
That was the one that Labor shouldn't have lost. That was the unlosable elections. Well, we won't get too far into that one. I will say that I think it was Bill Shorten. I saw a video pop up of him at like a marathon, and he was introducing himself to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he said, "I'm going to be the next Australian Prime Minister." And I think that video went viral. So I don't think that helped him. Just that extra bit of confidence. Maybe people thought that was a bit of arrogance.
Yeah. In the lead up to that election, because he was coming out to WA regularly, because we were that swing state that they needed to win. I actually went on 2 runs with Bill Shorten. So we did one, I think it was 7K loop around Optus and Crown. And then about a year later, so I think it was a few weeks before the election, he came back and we did it again, and he had a sore calf and couldn't finish. And I should have known then that was a bad omen.
He didn't just toughen it up and get through it. Okay, so you have been part of one election campaign that has lost. Okay, so, and then talk to me about all of a sudden 2023. Were you thinking that you were going to be, in the mix for, actually being able to be? I presume you weren't thinking you were going to be the member for Rockingham, even though you grew up there. What were your sort of plans before? I presume you got a tap on the shoulder and said, you're one of our young guns. Let's give you a go.
My plans were pretty much to see out my job until the next state or federal election in 2025, and then see what was closer to home, because I was actually starting to get a little bit sick of the commute, living in Rockingham and working in the city 5 days a week. And I think it was maybe a week or 2 before Mark McGowan retired, that my husband Jake and I were walking along the foreshore, and we walked past his office, and I said, maybe after the next elections I should be an elected officer for Mark, and then at least I'd be close to home, and if we have kids it's not an hour up the freeway. And then 2 weeks later he announced his retirement. I messaged Jake and said, should I put my hand up? And he was like, go for it, I think he said. And I didn't think I would be pre-selected, but I thought maybe it'll just signal for the future that I am interested in
you're keen,
taking
you're motivated.
that next step. It's my local seat. I'd kick myself if I didn't put myself in with the best shot. So then here I am.
And so, okay, and for someone like me that understands, the top level of politics, but don't really understand how the inner workings. And I reckon a lot of listeners are probably similar. How does a pre-selection work? I presume that the Labor Party are deciding, right, you're the one that we want to, go for that seat. So does that mean no other Labor person can go for it, or other Labor people can still go for it and you have to fight it out? Or
Yeah, so if there's an expression of interest phase, and people need to put their expression of interest to the party with, putting your history in, why you think you'd be the best bet. I think that's when you need to, demonstrate that you've been a member for a year. Like there's a few different rules. Like a member of the Labor Party for a year, sorry, I should say.
Yep.
And then the administrative committee look at those expressions of interest and then either approve or deny. And then if there's two that they put forward and say, yep, these two are good, that's when you would have a ballot of the party members. But I was the only person to submit an EOI.
Awesome. And then so all of a sudden, another campaign. So knocked on the doors, spoke to people, went, yep, you're local, that's good enough for me. And then the results ended up being, it was a solid win, but it wasn't a crazy win, was it?
Yep. No, there was a lot of conjecture about the win and, what that vote meant for Labor government and for me. But I was still pretty happy. It was, I think, 49% primary, which is almost 1 in 2. That's incredible.
That's a fantastic result.
I know,
Everyone's just used to 90%. You're never going to be able to be Mark, are you? Well, maybe in the future, but not right now.
I wasn't anticipating that level. And I have to say, at times, it didn't feel that way. Standing at pre-poll, it didn't feel like 1 and 2 were voting for me. But so it was, just an amazing result, and hopefully I can grow on it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I mean, as a politician, you sort of have to have a bit of a thick skin, don't you? Because not everyone agrees with your views and your politics and the way you see the world, and you do have to deal with sort of mini rejections a lot of the time. Like, how do you sort of internalize that and deal with that?
I think I have thick skin naturally, or I'm quite a resilient person. But it definitely is challenging. And, at times during the campaign, if there was bad media or just a bad day, or someone, yells at you on the side of the street that they're not voting for you, it's hard not to take it to heart. But I just found that I would put on this persona, like it was just, all right, now you're Magenta Marshall, and then get home at the end of the day and you take it off.
Yeah, love it.
That really got me through.
Yeah, well done. So now let's talk Rockingham. So you just had the Rockingham Cup.
Yes.
So down races on a Sunday, early November. You have horses racing each other. You've got a free festival the day before down on the foreshore. So how was that for the community?
Yeah, it was great. The Rockingham Beach Cup.
Beach Cup, sorry.
No, that's okay. It's the only horse racing on the beach in WA, and I think only one of 2 in Australia. And they use retired horses. I'm not a big horse racing fan myself, but one of the jockeys was Will Pikey, who I'm told is a really big deal.
I don't know my racing very well either, but I do know that name.
Okay.
So there we go. He must be a big deal.
There you go. And I can't remember the commentator's name, but the commentator was the one from Ascot, or who you'd hear on TV.
Okay,
and
cool.
So he was a professional. And
so Tourism WA was helping with that one as well.
Yep. The City of Rockingham invested a lot of money in it as well, and it's the Palm Beach Rotary Club who do a lot of the heavy lifting, and it's just such a great event to kind of lift that profile of Rockingham. It's all about advertising that we're not just bogans, and I think we've come a long way in recent years. It's
a fantastic spot. That foreshore is looking awesome.
Yeah, and that was definitely something I found during the campaign. Because, in previous years, Rockingham wouldn't be a seat that journalists would spend a lot of time in. They'd be at the marginal seats, and Mark probably would have been as well as Premier. So during the campaign, when journalists would come down and we'd do interviews on the foreshore or wherever, they would say, it's really lovely here. I know.
Yeah, no, the planning, whoever did the planning, there you can sort of see it's like 3/4 of the way there with those, as soon as a few more apartments and it fills out that complete foreshore. Yep. But I mean, you've already got the bars and the restaurants and cafes, and it's a real hub there on the weekends anyway. I've only been down on the weekends, so I presume it's still nice during the week.
It is, yeah. It's always thriving. A lot of people out walking dogs along that foreshore, getting coffees, yeah.
And it's a great little beach along there too, and a really nice walking spot. So, what other things?
Jellyfish, though.
Jellyfish,
Lots
okay.
of jellyfish.
So I got to avoid the jellyfish. Don't go out too far.
Safety baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what other things are you excited for in Rockingham, and what does the future have in store?
Well, for me, there's quite a few projects that I'm quite interested in progressing in Rockingham. I've got a spreadsheet with lots of different small and big projects that I'm trying to track and get action on. For me, some of the big ones would be Point Perrin. So not long after being elected, we announced that Cape Perrin would get Class A reserve status, which is the highest conservation protection and kind of recognises that it's a culturally significant area in line with Kings Park or Rottnest Island. So it's the same environment protection and I guess signifies that it's a tourist destination. So the next step of that is putting together a master plan about maximising its potential and we kind of refer to it as Kings Park by the sea. So that's what, I'm really keen to, see what we can transform that area to be. And
so getting people from Perth and from over east wanting to come down and visit it for the day or weekend.
Yeah, weekend would be great. Looking at, glamping or camping sites along there. There used to be camping available there many years ago. And I think if we can bring that back, it'll bring more people in to spend money in Rockingham, stay in Rockingham, rather than go past us to Mandurah or to Woodman Point, where you can park up the caravan. If people came and stayed in Rockingham, that would be really great. The high schools, so we had investment for the high schools. They're both from the 70s, so they're 50 years old. They need a bit of love and updating so that our kids and teachers have the best
Keep
possible
doing camps
environment.
there for weekends and during the week as well.
Yeah. We do have camps in Point Perrin, and lots of schools do go stay there. So I want to make sure we protect that, but also invest in the area as well.
Yeah, awesome. It is a beautiful area down there. Now, but did I hear was it Penguin Island that was no longer? They were no longer going to be doing shows there. Is that right?
Yeah, the Discovery Centre on the island was deemed unsafe.
Because it was pretty old school, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Real 1960s build or something like that.
Yeah. So it was built on like wooden stilts, and I believe they were rotting, and so it was condemned. And then they were looking at building a new Discovery Centre on the island, but it was going to have too much of an impact on the penguin wildlife there, which has really diminished in recent decades. Not just because of tourism, but also because of climate change, unfortunately, and the rising sea temperatures, meaning penguins have to travel further to get the white bait that they eat. Which means they might inhabit different areas or unfortunately fall victim to predators out there, sorry. So that is one of the issues as well in Rockingham, and the department's looking at where they can put it on the mainland so that they don't impact the penguin population on the island. And I
people
think if
can
we
still
can
go and enjoy them and see them.
They'll still have conservation for those penguins who aren't able to be rehabilitated back into the wildlife as well.
Yep. And the port, so the port from Freo is starting to sort of shift, further down. Is that correct?
Yeah, Westport.
Yeah. Yep.
That's not something I'm super across yet.
Yeah. No, sorry. I've just thrown you an absolute curveball there.
I actually have a briefing on Westport in 2 weeks. So
cool. 2 weeks time, we'll get you down.
But there is so much investment along the Rockingham industrial and Kwinana industrial area that I've never seen so many cranes in the horizon over there.
Well, I think it's exciting because Rockingham, I think for a long time it's sort of been Perth and then it's Rockingham, but whereas it's really just completely part of that Perth, Perth sort of beach line now. It's and as the bigger on the grass hill and sun sets and everyone starts clapping, so it's awesome to see how that has been redone. And you can, it's, in my opinion, it's already awesome down in that Rockingham foreshore, but if there's more investment going on and then that gets bigger and with more people brings more vibe and more cafes and more options, and I think that can only be a good thing for the people of Rockingham.
Absolutely agree. Yeah.
And so, what are you most excited for in the future? Have we got our next premier here on the podcast?
I don't know. I always thought that I wouldn't be a member of parliament because it seemed too difficult, and now I look at the ministers and think, oh, poor them. But you never know until the opportunity comes up.
It looks hard work. It does look hard work.
Yeah, a lot of pressure and I guess responsibility that comes with. Even now, sometimes, if you can't get an outcome for someone you want, that can really weigh on me, and learning to navigate that and not take things personally, having that personal responsibility can be tough.
Yeah. And then, like you said, when you get home, you can just have a glass of wine, or you don't have to be Magenta Marshall and have that. Yeah. But I really do admire politicians and just the hard work you do, but then sometimes it can, it's not that, people aren't just going to thank you as often as in other roles. So well done on just having that thick skin. So
Thank you.
yeah, you've done well already. And I don't know too many people that get into politics as early as you. So
Yeah, I am considered the baby of the house, being the youngest one there and the only one under 30. But I think that's really exciting. I don't think I'm the smartest or, the person there with the best skills, but being there around all those experienced members of parliament who've been there a lot longer than me, I hope that I can be, part of the next generation that will, learn from them, but also have new ideas and maybe get rid of some of the things that didn't work or the old toxic attitudes that, people talk about, and I guess be a new face for politics.
I love it. And, that's why we got you onto the podcast, because, I haven't seen someone under 30 in state politics for a while. So congratulations, mate. And thank you for coming on the podcast. We'll have to get you when you're the premier. We'll have to get you on the podcast to catch up, or maybe in 2 weeks' time when we've had the briefing.
Thank you. Well, hopefully I'll see you at the Rockingham Beach Cup next year.
Yes, and for all the listeners, okay, so early November next year. Put it in your calendar to go down for the weekend.
Yes.
Thanks, Magenta.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.